What is going on, Brooklyn Net fans? Hello, and welcome back into the Brooklyn Boys Show. Appreciate you all joining us. Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe on your way into the building. It's completely free and it helps us grow significantly. Here on the show, the NBA draft is less than 2 weeks away, and obviously that's a significant talking point for the Brooklyn Nets with 4 first-round picks and obviously a top 10 selection in this year's draft. But who better to bring on to talk all things Brooklyn Nets and all things Brooklyn Nets draft than a host on the Infinity Sports Network and a host on SiriusXM NBA Radio. It's our good friend David Shephard, who was kind enough to grace us with his presence here on the show. Shep, how you doing? And we appreciate you sparing some time.
Yeah, I'm doing well, Connor. Appreciate you having me, man. Thanks, buddy. And thanks for the kind introduction. It's an interesting time to be a Nets fan. I remember,
Absolutely.
obviously you go back to a toe, and that's the difference between them getting to an NBA Finals and them basically breaking it up the next year after getting swept by the Boston Celtics.
Absolutely, and what I will say is obviously the big three. Watching that all implode is one of the worst thing. That's probably the worst thing that's ever happened in Nets history, and one of the craziest stories in the National Basketball Association itself. But I give Sean Marks credit for how he's been able to rebound with those trades since the big three has been disbanded. What he flipped Kevin Durant into, and then obviously taking Mikal Bridges and orchestrating that deal for six
Sure.
first-round picks, and the Kyrie Irving trade, even getting Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith, who was able to provide somewhat of a spark. The only trade that still harms us today is the James Harden trade that yielded Ben Simmons, and we will never forget
Whew.
what happened there. And obviously Ben Simmons, I'd say thankfully at this point, is no longer a Brooklyn Net. And a big trade that occurred yesterday around the NBA was the Desmond Bain trade that obviously sent Desmond Bain to the Orlando Magic. And it's caused a lot of controversy because we saw a crazy trade like this just last year. Mikal Bridges, the amount of draft capital that was given up. I kind of want to ask you here, how does that correlate to the Nets and a player like Cam Johnson, who there's been a lot of rumors about the Nets looking to deal him? How do you view the Desmond Bain trade, and how does that kind of impact what the Nets would potentially get in a package for Cam Johnson, given their similar skill sets, their similar age, and how they play basketball?
No, it's a good question. You would figure it would warrant the same amount, right? We're talking 4 or 5 first round draft picks, pick
Mhm.
swap. Cam Johnson, the thing that he has that Desmond Bain does not is he's got length. You can't say that about Desmond Bain. Um, Look, with Desmond Bain, it's not like the Nets have made any noise in the postseason either, but Desmond Bain is a legit Robin on a title contending team. They just didn't have John Morant distributing the leadership that he should have distributed. I don't think Taylor Jenkins was the answer at head coach, but you talk about a guy that averaged 19 points per game, and Cam Johnson, if memory serves me correctly, I mean he's not an old guy, but he's not young.
Yeah.
Cam Johnson, I think he's going to be 30 years old relatively soon.
Mhm.
But with that being said, we know he can shoot the lights out when he's hot. He obviously fits into today's game really well because he is a 3 and D guy, because he is someone that has touch from the outside, because he gives you versatility. He gives you versatility in a way that Desmond Bain does not. So yes, he would warrant the same amount of draft picks and a pick swap. The interesting name is Cam Thomas because
Yeah.
to me, he's the guy that is microwave esque. He's the guy that he gets legit playing time, and we saw that this year. And obviously, he did not play a full season, but he's a minimum 20 points per game guy.
Absolutely.
Those to me have been your two best players in 2024, 2025. It's the two Cams.
Very interesting because I've been saying this the past few weeks now. The fact that Cam Thomas only played 26 games last year, I think is kind of a blessing in disguise for the Nets, given the fact that Cam Thomas is a restricted free agent this offseason, yet nobody is talking about outside destinations. It's already assumed that Cam Thomas is going to come back and he's going to re-up with the Brooklyn Nets on a multi-year deal. And I think you and I could both agree we think that's what's going to happen. I kind of just want to gauge your thoughts on what do you think a fair price tag, a fair extension would look like for Cam Thomas. I kind of drew a parallel to the Anthony Simons extension of the Portland with the Portland Trailblazers just last offseason. That's the extension I've kind of been lining up with what Cam Thomas might get. What do you think a Cam Thomas extension looks like for Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to like me saying this, but look, the kid's 23 years old.
Mm,
When he was healthy, even the season prior to this, he was giving you 22, 23 points per game, getting out of bed. We remember the 40-point games he was putting up when he was finally getting playing time, and he wasn't,
mhm.
stuffed as the 11th, 12th man. So just by today's NBA standards, you look at the deals that guys are getting. He's got to be getting at least 30 million a year, at least.
Completely
And
agree.
the reality is, this is a guy that he's been with the Nets for quite some time. So he's all they have. He's all they have, and I would definitely look. Is he going to be confused for Lou Dort anytime soon defensively? No. The whole Fernandez. I like the job that he's done, but
Same.
that's where it's got to start. It's got to start from the coach, right? Like so many guys can be great and gifted offensively, as Cam Thomas is. But in this league, and we're seeing that play out in the NBA Finals, we saw that play out when they completely shut down the Pacers in the half court offense in the NBA Finals, that being OKC. Can you get the stops down the stretch? That's what the league is. Because that's what wins championships is defense. And, yeah, you got Nick Claxton, but who else on the Nets do you look at?
Well, Nick
And
Claxton
say,
wasn't even good defensively last year. Ever since he re-upped on that 4-year,
right,
$100 million deal, he wasn't the defensive player of the
yeah,
year caliber player that we saw in 2023, which ultimately yielded him that extension. The Nets really don't have it. Like, you even saw Nick Claxton getting bullied by Bismack Biyombo at
that's the
points during
problem.
the year. Like, it's
That's
an issue. The Nets don't
yeah.
have anyone who could defend the big.
Yeah, that's a big problem. So look, you got to pay Cam whatever he's willing to compromise on because he's your best player. But look, you're talking about a Nets team that was 30 games under 500 last year. So you're going to need more than the two Cams, and you're going to need defensive stalwarts to really compete in an Eastern Conference where there's such a gap between the Nets and the Celtics and the Cavs and the Pacers and the Knicks. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's you got look. Sean Marks knows what he's doing. Um, but this is a team that we're talking about the difference between a toe and not a toe on the 3-point line is still having to this day Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. You never know. So
100%. I think when you look at a Cam Thomas extension, it looks like 3 years, $100 million. I think if
yeah,
I took a prediction today, that's what would make the most sense for both sides because I don't think Cam Thomas wants to sign a four-year deal, a 5-year deal with this Brooklyn Nets team. He's 23 years old. If you sign a 3-year deal with him today, he'd be 26 when he would enter free agency next after that deal would have expired. And then you're hoping he's hoping that he's at the peak of his career, and then he's in line to potentially sign a supermax deal, whether it's with the Brooklyn Nets or whether it's with another team. I think that's what Cam Thomas is really looking for, a 2 to 3 year deal that gets him to the point where he's at the climax of his career and gives him an opportunity to earn a supermax deal. And I think that's what Cam Thomas and his agency really wants, and they will ultimately get this offseason. You mentioned Nick Claxton. That's kind of what I want to get into next. Obviously, signed a 4-year, $100 million huge contract last offseason after a huge 2023 campaign. Didn't live up to those same expectations in 2024. What would your thoughts be if the Nets potentially tried to move Nick Claxton? And what do you think a fair package in return for Claxton would look like?
this is where I wish I was Bobby Marks. Here's the thing: he's not like obviously to your point. He had the best season of his career 2 years ago, and ever since then, he is down on rebounds per game. He's down on points per game. He's turning the ball over more, and this is in more minutes. So if I'm the Nets, I'm actually not looking to trade him. I'm just looking to get the most out of him. That's the solution for them. Because to your point, this was the guy that was like Cam Johnson around, or Cam Thomas, I should say, was around when Kevin Durant was there, when James Harden was there, when Kyrie Irving was there. And he's too talented to be finishing a season averaging just 10 points per game. And look, he's still relatively young. I mean, he still just turned 26. So we're often seeing Nikola Jokic not even at his apex yet, in terms of being a defender. Anyways, he's been gifted offensively for years, but defensively, the best defense I've seen from Nikola Jokic is a rim protector this year. So there's still time for Nick Claxton. So to answer your question, if I'm the Knicks and I'm the Nets and I'm Sean Marks, I'm not trading him. Could I get a first round pick for him? Sure. But this is a guy that again showed such promise at 22, 23 years old. I don't want to give up on that because you can't teach 7 feet and you can't teach athletics at 7 feet. So that's why, to me, I'm not trading Nick Claxton. I just need, I need a big time playmaker. Give me someone like a Tyrese Halliburton. I know they don't grow on trees, but give me someone that can initiate an offense. The Nets don't have that.
I think
That's the
Cam
problem.
Thomas could be that, really. Like, I think Cam Thomas could be a someone who is really just a floor general and who could be a spacer and could shoot can we all know Cam Thomas could shoot the three ball. The thing is, Cam Thomas played 26 games last season, Shep. Like, he was never on the floor. Like, Cam Thomas playing 70 games, I think, is a different animal for this
Yeah, but
team.
he's more Iverson than Nash, Kidd,
Yeah.
even Simmons in his Simmons prime, right? Like he's not in the business of setting up others. He's in the business of getting his.
He needs someone to set him up to make
Yeah,
plays. He
exactly.
needs a strong. He's been playing the two a lot for the Nets. Like, I think he needs a strong one. That's why I've been preaching Trey Johnson from Texas for the Nets with the 8th overall pick, or if they elect to trade up. I really want this team to add a second shooter, another guy who can be a pull up threat, who can play solid defense for you. And that's kind of where I want to transition into next. The NBA draft. The Nets hold 4 first-round picks. Top 10 selection should have been top 3, but we'll the NBA lottery will do NBA lottery type things. They have the 8th overall pick in this year's draft. And obviously, the Nets have so much cap space. They have so much draft capital. They can go in a lot of different directions. They could try to put together a huge package to potentially move up to the number 3 or number 2 overall spot. They could aim to trade back and collect more capital, or they can stick at pick at 8. Shep, what do you think is the best route for the Jets with the Nets, excuse me. I've been talking a lot of Jets recently with the Nets
Right.
with their top 10 pick this year.
I'm hearing Jeremiah Fears.
Ooh.
That's what I'm hearing from them. Obviously, he's a do-it-all wing. He's not a natural point guard, but he knows how to make plays for himself. And he can facilitate. So this is a guy that knows how to get to the free throw line. Look, if I'm the Nets, I don't have to tell you this, man. They've waited long enough. They've been in rebuild mode for quite some time now, and it's about time that they make a good draft pick. And this is one of the better draft picks that we've had in quite some time. Obviously, you're not going to get Cooper Flag, you're not going to get Dylan Harper, you're not going to get Ace Bailey. Those guys are going to get picked with the first 3, likely by the Mavs, Spurs, and 76ers. But again, Jeremiah Fears, that's the guy I'm hoping for. Con Kniffel, that's the guy I'm hoping for. And then you potentially build around them. I'm not looking to trade to get any, quasi star. I'm looking to build young, and I'm looking to build through this particular draft, because this is going to be a special one. This is going to be one of those drafts that's, unforgettable. Unlike 2024, where, let's be honest, most of us cannot even pronounce the overall number 1 pick of that draft, and he's been in the league for a year. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The scenario that I really, really like is if you can somehow try to get the 9th overall pick from Atlanta, and then you have 2 back-to-back selections, and if that could yield you a Jeremiah Fears and someone I really, really like, a big man, is Kaman Malawach from Duke. He's a guy I really, really like. So if you can get your guard in Jeremiah Fears, the do-it-all wing, like you said, and then double dip and get a big like Malawach for yourself, I think that's an ideal scenario. I still am sticking to the fact, though, that the Nets have to go with the best player available on the board. I'm all for Sean Marks taking a big swing, but I really like Fears, or even a guy like Noah Asengu, just given the fact of their high floors, and the chances that you miss on a guy like Asengu or Fears are just so low. So I want to get your thoughts. Are you okay with the Nets taking a big swing on maybe a guy like Malawach, who has a high ceiling but a lower floor, instead of a Noah Asengu or Jeremiah Fears with a super, super high floor?
Yeah, Malowich has a very high ceiling, literally 7'2".
Yeah.
So look, you gotta swing for the fences. Why not? Obviously, he's going to be a project offensively, but defensively, to your point, he's going to be able to make an impact right away. You hope this isn't a Hashim Thabit situation, where he gets drafted so high and doesn't really work for the rest of his career. But yeah, you might as well listen. The Nets. I'm not saying anything again. You don't know that the Nets need all the help they can get. So if that comes in the form of Malawach, if that comes in the form of Fears, they'll take whatever they can get at this point. It's been a laughing stock the last couple of years. They've been one of the league's doormats, and
They've been a
look,
laughing stock since 2012, Shep. They've been a laughing stock since 1976 when they entered the net.
well,
Well,
listen, I mean, when they were the New Jersey Nets and they were making NBA Finals and back-to-back appearances with Jay Kidd and Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson, they weren't a laughing stock then. When they were, beating the Raptors in the first round with an older Kevin Garnett and older Paul Pierce, and I felt they played Miami tough in that Eastern Conference semifinals. I know it only went 5 games, but that series could have gone either way. It was so close. Um, you know, they were there, and obviously even more recently, 2021. Again, it comes down to one toe. If that toe is not on the line, the Nets beat the Bucks, then they beat the Hawks in the conference finals, and who knows what happens against the
Big
Suns
Three's
in
never
the
disbanded. We're talking about a dynasty in Brooklyn,
right.
Shep.
You never
Who knows?
know. I mean, they're still. I mean, all three of those guys are still playing at a pretty high level. So
Absolutely. And this Shep, appreciate you sparing some time, and I appreciate you hopping on with us here on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Joined by David Shephard here, host on the Infinity Sports Network and Sirius XM NBA Radio. Shep, appreciate you as always. You got any final thoughts, and let everyone know out there where they can find you and your incredible work.
sure. Well, you can always find me at Shep on Air on any social media platform. I host on Infinity Sports Network. Every single Saturday, every single Sunday morning, I host on Sirius XM. And Connor, man, just curious, how old are you?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm 13 years old. I turned 14 in July.
So you do a really good job.
Thank you, man.
That's something I wanted to add. You sound like a professional, man. You really do your homework. You do your research, and very impressed with just how natural you are on camera. So
Thank
whatever it is you're doing, continue to do it and stay hungry. You got a really bright future in this business.
Shep, that means a lot, man. Appreciate your support. I've only been doing these shows since about a year and a half ago when I launched my Jet channel, and that's what I've really been able to build up past, 2,000, around 3,000 followers now across all social media platforms. I mean,
Very
building an
nice.
audience in this industry is certainly not easy. And this Nets channel is a show that I actually just launched with my friend and we've been kind of branching off and doing our own stuff on this channel for about 2 weeks now. And we've built it up to a couple hundred followers. So we're just trying to build, all the platforms. And I think building your own brand is something that's really important here. So Shep, really appreciate the kind words and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Connor. Appreciate you having me, man.
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, he's David Shephard. I'm your host, Connor Long, signing off. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And as always, go Nets.